Hi, good evening, YouTube troopers. I'm your host, I'm Tam-Behind-Tha-Mic, and I wanted to continue our discussion. Uh, does evil only exist within the music industry solely? Let me give you a little background on me. I'm a hip hop pioneer. Um, Started out in 1976. I'm in that preteen group, and I started out in Queens. I'm one of the ones that they try to and are trying to omit me out the history because they're pushing another narrative that is very much so debatable. In addition, through my life experiences with getting my first song written that I wrote myself, it was taken away, it was manipulated. When Jeff Jam just started out, that's when Heidi was there, Russell. And by the way, I'm from Hollis and St. Albans area. And Russell was never really in the parks with us. So I don't think he knew what was who. But I know that he was managing his brother Run at the time. But I was referred to Def Jam via Spider D. Excuse me, I just finished eating. I've been running around and my shoulder's still out of whack a little bit. Yeah, so life experience has taught me a lot. Then I was down with these guys for many years that I won't say their name because I had a court case against them and some other institutions, but I had filed, well, I didn't file. It was a lot of clerical errors and they dismissed it. So we're in another venue and I'm going to continue to fight because I'm fighting for justice. I'm fighting for my history and everybody else's history. In lieu of Angie Stone passing away, I spoke of her in my previous live 2016 is when we was actually together at the Women in Hip Hop event. And you could tell by what the narrative that they was pushing that they were really trying to omit sequence, which Angie B was part of and co-founder in another category, which is just not true and it wasn't right. With me, I was requested to change my timeline. And of course, I was omitted out of a lot of the activities. And what I can see, it's just clicks. And if you're not in that click and you're not dancing to the beat of their drum, they just want to omit you. And initially, I thought that I could possibly be instrumental in providing them information. But again, it's this negative vibration that's all in there, and they want to try to change everybody's history. Now, when I was younger, I played with various different groups in different places. I've heard other ladies within hip hop talk about me. Oh, what was she? I was in the house at 12 years old. What was she doing outside? Well, if you had older cousins and you had friends on the other side that had other siblings, you would be outside in the park. And they was DJing and you was MCing. I was part of the Double Dutch team. But like Angie and I was discussing was that there could not be one person everywhere at one time. That was just impossible. Now, I'm from New York City. I'm a native New Yorker, and there's 5 boroughs, and there's also counties: Westchester County, Suffolk County, Nassau County, various different counties. So there is not one way that somebody can just say one particular area started what they call hip hop. Now they named it, right? But that culture thing, all of that is like kind of breaking down because what's going on now is that there's a lot of confusion. There really is. And I don't want to go off a tangent, but I do want to delve into what is going on and what is the energy in the climate right now. You know, I'm talking about in the universe. Well, like I said, I started out young, and then you have to always be careful with the company you keep, because I've heard people say, I've heard through third parties and through the grapevine, people saying various things about me. Like, I don't give a shit if it's not true, and it's not. Like, these guys, everybody wants to be into this museum. Everybody wants to go into this false narrative. People are retracting, you know, who they are, what they're doing, the timelines and everything. Got my Palo Santo here. It smells so good. So I've been wanting to start this channel because I've gone through so much grief. And that's why you'll see Grief, Love in a Glance, where I'm discussing my grief and the tools that I've been using to cope. And I tell you, since I lost my daughter and my godson, and then his mom, and so many others, it changes your brain, the dynamics of it. You're forever changed. But I lost my daughter, and my daughter was a baby when I had started going back in the studio. And the same guys that had been jerking me and praying for years manipulated me into taking another member's place. And they were signed to profile with the false pretense of me getting my name on the contract and all of that. I had to pay for babysitters. I had to go up to the Bronx and practice with the other partner who was into substances. Oh, it was just like a nightmare. And then I had to say, you know what, this is enough. She got to come to my house, because I'm watching her son, because she just can't pull away from what the hell she doing. And it was just a lot. We started re-recording the songs. I started helping the writer of some songs, so we was co-writing and writing songs over. And I looked him up. Come to find out, he passed away. So now I have to check into a lot of stuff. But my daughter, not only the studio thing, it was the environment, which is very, very, very sketchy. Certain environments, you depend on people doing the right thing. They don't always do the right thing, especially if they're down with that ring that's going on. They just don't. I moved from the Bronx back to Queens. I've done some good stuff in the Bronx, but I dare not tell my full story, because every time I turn around, somebody is trying to debunk what I've said. And I've been watching them. Well, they were watching me, but I blocked, you know. And what I can believe, because it's so shisty and people are so evil, that yeah, just like Stone's Paxton has been saying about Angie Stone. Like, a lot of celebrities ain't saying too much about Angie, and I'm sure these females that call themselves the first of everything, they certainly not. They portray to be one way, but they're another. So much cutthroat, so much dissension. And what's so sad is that the correct history behind the genre is not being told. It really isn't. You got 5 boroughs. Nobody has asked Fat Cat Nicholas, because he was over there in South Jamaica. I've heard people say, oh, quiet Queens. Queens is not that damn quiet. And the guys running around co-signing that, they couldn't even get off the block. I was out emceeing and stuff way before them, you know. And now that you got the political people involved, right? Getting funding, and with the taxpayers' money, and here we have a so-called accurate record of hip hop, which is not true. And that was the trife that Angie had with the sequence, and rightfully so. Because even for me, I didn't retract. I even had to go and get paperwork from the individual and ask her, when did I used to stay the weekends at your house over there in Queens? I got receipts. And a lot of my stuff was stolen or damaged because I was so young. And even as a teenager, these same shiesty guys, I wouldn't be surprised if they didn't destroy my stuff. Because one storage I had accidentally mentioned, and like 9 years ago, they still had my stuff until someone came along and got the stuff out of there. This is real stuff that's going on. Evil. Like me and my daughter was subjected to a lot living in Astoria, Queens, under false pretense that it was somebody's building, and then the other person wind up taking over the building. You want me to be quiet? Hell no, I ain't gonna be quiet. And then you got a damn mayor running around here that's a fanboy, and he's ridiculous. He was out here in Brownsville, but then he moved to Queens South Side and used to run with one of my cousins, which is really perplexing, in Seven Crowns, Jamaica. So everybody knew I was in the park, and from the parks, I went into the clubs. And there's other stuff that happened. That's why I said in my title, you have to be careful who you have around you. And I learned hard lessons because I left home at the age of 13. So I didn't finish and I didn't graduate junior high school when I got kicked out of IS 238, which I first started rapping and was in a talent show on that stage, and went to 192. And that's how I met Hurricane and Born and Mario and D and all of them. And they may have seen me before playing at the block parties, house parties, like, I used to do young like that. But yeah, that's when we used to go to O'Connor Park. And that's another thing. Now, I like people's music, and it ain't no hate here. But the fact of the matter is that one of the females that's listed in O'Connor Park with the drawing, she never played in O'Connor Park, and she is not from Hollis, which is crazy. They are just doing anything they want to do because of the clicks. And then the extent that they go to because they want you to be quiet. I'm that tough chick. We ain't scared over here. I finally got a chance, got to a place in my life that I could share what was going on to my other cousins when I met up with them. Because being a young MC, you don't know that you're attracting negative people. People that may at some point become envious and jealous of you. So they're undermining everything that you're pursuing because you might be elevating a little more than them. So I'm here to tell you, this evil, this negative, this black energy is not only in the music industry. It's going on with various facets like employment. And it's the black on black, of course. If they can't use you and abuse you, and if you complain and you take action, rightful action, you face retribution. Make it make sense. Now you have all of these pioneers that I've been in contact with, and as I began to have more followers, I will be able to get in depth into those interviews and have a lot of people on the show as well. But with me, I'm just trying to get back to a place that I can publicly speak because, like I said, I've been through a lot. I wasn't reading like I was supposed to. My health has failed. I'm raising my two grandkids. By the way, my two grandkids was present when my daughter passed away. And because there were city agencies involved, black folks behind them, they covered up and it was no accountability. None whatsoever. They didn't even put in bereavement or any financial support services or anything. But I was like, my grandkids would not grow up in a broken system that continuously exploits boys and girls in the name of agency ACS. That's not going to happen. Because, like myself and so many others, were neglected, even in that system. You jump out the frying pan into the fire. So, I've been caring for them. I had to implement all of those different things. And I have not been very happy about the black politicians. And I think that's why President Trump was elected, because a lot of people are sick and tired of them just catering to their cliques and abuse of power and conflicts of interest and the sort. Yeah, I know I am. Even though I didn't vote for Trump, but I ain't knock him either. Because one of the reasons why I didn't vote for Trump is because of Eric Adams, and Letitia James. Forget about it. You see her prancing around with the same guys that got dirty hands. Dirty hands. They don't have no clean hands. Dirty. And I know she heard of me because I was out there protesting with my chair and everything, with hip hop stands with survivors with Leila Wills, because this is a serious issue and because of what happened to Poppy and Ronald Savage. And while I'm on the subject matter too, let me speak in terms of what Angie Stone did. Angie Stone walked across that Brooklyn Bridge, her and Sha-Rock and so many others, in support of the Child Victims Act. And then Ronald Savage recanted and he did his closure tour, still closing. And I have my own opinion. I think that, he was swayed because he's definitely a victim. But I find that to be very perplexing that all of that is being silenced. Silenced. And nobody has given no real big ups to Angie Stone, you know? And even when I was offered to come to Atlantic Records, I think I'm kind of happy that I didn't, because the way people was getting jerked, and one of the executives, when I was sitting on the educational day, the input for the museum, before I really knew what they was about, but I knew they was up to something, really did, because you could tell, you know, you can really tell when people are up to it. But you don't think that, black folks are going to be that way. But however, history has told us and has showed us that they are. And one of the factors when it comes to the reparation is black folks are always selling out one another. They eat their own, which is crazy. Yeah. So, it's been a lot of retraction. I even told Tariq Nasheed when I ran into him, before he was doing microphone check. And I had went up to the Bronx because, like I said, I did stuff in the Bronx too. I knew Disco King married Grand Wizard Theodore. I'm like, how the hell you all forget me? Because everybody wants to be in the in crowd. So you disregard the real history of what's going on and you try to demean people. That's crazy. I even went to an event for the 50th year out there in Astoria because, like I said, I played all over. I played in Queensbridge before Roxanne Shante, before Shan, because I'm older than them. I'm older than Sweet Tea. I'm also older than MC Light. And I had met her years ago at one of the new music seminars. And now everybody is trying to suffer from amnesia. Even Cheryl from Salt and Pepper. I used to freestyle on the B-53 bus going to Grover Cleveland High School. She'll never mention me. She'll never, she might, like something, a comment or anything. But they said early on she was looking for me to join the group. But there was a lot going on in my life because you deal with a lot of evil and it's getting worse and worse and it's just permeating all in our communities. It's like a cesspool. It's permeating, in various different industries. It's just appalling. It really is. One of my daughters used to work for the Attorney General. Same culture. One of my daughters is beautiful. I got pictures with the Attorney General, holding my granddaughter. My daughter was going through some things. She had to resign from her job because she was being harassed. A lady was abusing her power. Why? Because she was appointed by somebody politically connected. So they don't worry about their jobs. So the stuff that's going on in New York City is pure evil, and I'm sure that the guy that's the head, the leader, usually things happen from the top down, is not the kindest person because I had told him firsthand when my daughter passed and he was the borough president. So I'm glad I didn't vote for him either. And then with all of this nonsense and then him saying, oh, we almost didn't have this celebration because of people. No, because children have gotten harmed. Young adults, boys and girls, have had harm done to them. And it trickled down to their children. Like my daughter. My daughter should never have been in a house where they knew that there was rats and that drugs was sold out of there. If I knew all of that, I would have never moved in there. And because I didn't want to be his damn patsy, that wasn't the agreement. I'm so sick of this until it's pathetic. Yeah, so somebody should really be concerned about it. And I am. So I started this channel because I want everybody to know that Tam-Behind-Tha-Mic, I'm coming. You understand? I'm coming. And anything I do have, it wouldn't go into that museum, So, yeah. So it's just a lot that's going on, and it's pure evil. I've seen some cutthroat when I was working for the city of New York. And this guy, he cut and he did whatever he needed to do to get to the top. And there's always been alleged rumors concerning him. Just because they married don't mean that they not on the down low. It really doesn't. So, until he moved up and became commissioner, which it was alleged that he helped cover up the case with my daughter because one of the agencies that was under the umbrella was in my daughter's household. And also what happened with my godson in the shelter system, and they promote you instead of doing the right thing and having accountability. What they do is they have retribution against you if you say something. Oh, because you complain. What happened to freedom of speech? Tell me, friends. What happened? Ridiculous. Yeah, he wound up having to resign. And other people have resigned under that administration. Me, I'm working like a damn slave, which I had been injured like in 2015. And I think I was waiting for surgery. But I was still trying to get around to find out what the hell was going on, about this hip hop museum and what was going on in the whole gamut. And I had to stop and think, like, wait a minute. The dialogue, the narrative they trying to push is incorrect. Then you got all of these historians walking around and they wasn't there. It's like they fanboys and fangirls, which they're not really getting to the essence. So you got to be creative think outside the box to get your story heard. To get your story heard. Topple, I went on a tangent. Sorry. Sometimes I do that. Yeah, but this guy, what happened to him is that he yelled at somebody white. And black, if you think you black and you supreme, that white supremacy takes all. It supersedes that. Yeah, so he had to resign. But he been doing dirty stuff for years. Compromising evidence, all of that. All of that. I had a lawsuit in regards to my daughter's estate, and I was out there in that protest March 27th, which tomorrow will make 2 years. 2 years. Because it's a lot of shadiness going on. And folks acting like they should brainwash you. And I'm like, hell no. I didn't start because of y'all. Shoot, I was in Queens. I found other female MCs too. Other DJs. It's crazy. It's downright crazy what's going on. Yeah. And then you think you got the ear of white folks, Schumer. They appease, and I'm just so sick of us. That's why I don't think our Black history is being told properly because of this. And this is also was the entry because of the greed and the jealousy and the envy and the crab in the barrels type of thinking. One can't supersede and climb up before the other one is why we're in predicament now and is what caused slavery. Yeah. This is the mentality. So to sum this up, to bring it all tied in, it's not only going into the music industry, because now that there's funding that's been pushed to an institution, it's intertwined. And people are so desperate. And if you're not going to their story, then you're ostracized. And that didn't only happen with Sequence, it happened with me, it happened with the Frisco girls, and there's probably a whole other Foxy Brown, all of that. LaShawn from LL Cool J doing it well, because she stood up for herself. She was pregnant. And in fact, when Atlantic Records was looking at me and wanted me to submit a demo, but I had to escape out of living off that H Street and Astoria Boulevard. In fact, Nas talks about that in Illmatic, his first one, talk about H Street, not knowing that it was a whole entire different building owner and all of that shicey sniff. It just permeates, keep going and expanding. But oh, I forgot my chain of thought. But yeah. But I know what I was saying. I was talking about LaShawn, and I had moved to Brooklyn, and I still was going to work with another DJ in order to submit my demo to Atlantic Records. But my daughter had her arm fractured once again because I was partying and I was going to meet one of my friends and I was getting the rest of the money to move into my new place. Because I had to get out of that shithole. I walked out of that traumatized. And if I was traumatized, I know my daughter was too. And I'll probably go into debt another time on that instance. But yeah, LaShawn had just the song had released, and she sued, or she began the process of suing. Her DJ Lisa lived in the building too. In fact, she lived on my floor, And I was trying to find a DJ, and she was like, nope, she did not want to be bothered because they were signed to Tommy Boy. And I could have went to Sugar Hill too when I met Sylvia Robinson in Harlem, and I was about 14 years old. See, there's a lot of things people don't know about my history, and they damn sure don't want it told because it's going to debunk the narrative that they're saying. You know, it's been so many lies and so many people that's up there, they've lied and they've done a lot of dirty stuff. Not all of them, but some of them to get up there. And that's sad. And that's not what we started out in the park. I'm so sorry. That was my phone. That's not how we started out. You know, it started out as something good and it turned to something really bad and evil. So at this point, I'm a half an hour in and I don't want to rattle and be all over the place. And I'm just testing out my public speaking. So later on, I'll probably be able to, you know, work on some projects as a hobby. And I'll be able to educate and learn. I've been learning from a lot of these YouTubers, though, and information. And I've also been standing up for Angie and her family, you know. So all of that mess that the kids was involved, they were not involved in what happened to Angie Stone. I don't believe that. Those children are devastated. You don't know the impact of grief. It took me like 3 years for it really to hit me because I was in fight mode. I was pushing a 50-pound cart the week before my daughter passed, and my daughter had some issues going on in her house and the care of her children, my grandkids. And I was so worried and so stressed that I pushed myself to go back to work because my youngest daughter had a child, even though she was of age and she had finished school. But it was a lot of pressure on me, and I just felt like something was going to happen because after years of going through various different challenges and obstacles, you acquire wisdom and then you learn how to tap into the power within you, you know, the spiritual source, the intuitiveness, you know. And I think, in terms, many a day, had I listened, things would have been different for myself and my family as well. But I was pushing a 50-pound cart of training materials, city FEPs. That's when they talk about city FEPs. I'm still traumatized. And I should have went out on retirement disability, but I was denied because of the inner workings of other people. But thank God I'm a survivor. I survived so many different things, and I'm a fighter. I damn sure am. You know, I'm a fighter. I'm a fighter to the end. And that's what I do because I've had no other choice. You know, when people in power and even adults, when they're supposed to be responsible for taking care of kids, and the municipalities, they have these rules, these laws, but only them, they could break them, but not the regular citizens, is ridiculous. Excuse me. So I've had various different surgeries. It hurt my heart so bad when my daughter passed, I almost transitioned. I really did. People do not know the extent of grief and how you go from shock, from anger, from guilt, for disbelief, all of those things. And all those things I had to put in place and hope and pray that it helps my grandkids. I had to put therapy, support groups, you know, grief support groups for myself, for the kids. It took me forever to try to even take care of myself because when I got the kids, an agency was supposed